Well, Razorback fans, a little bit of movement on the Razorback basketball side of things, but why is it such a delay when it comes to some of the players committing to Arkansas? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every moment and every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions to apply. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, as I know we are getting to the point of baseball getting in full swing, which we'll talk a little bit more about. No football major news, a little bit of some stuff we may get into here just a little bit when it comes to the transfer portal and everything. But basketball did have some things happen over the weekend, or at least since the last time we were able to catch up. Like, for instance, John Calipari was able to get an assistant coach in Kenny Payne. Kenny Payne, the former Louisville coach, which did not go well at all whatsoever. It was recently fired, and he's a guy that's been a long-time assistant coach and has been a long time with John Calipari in his time at Kentucky, and he's officially been brought on to be the assistant coach. He's 57 years old, and he went 12-52 in just the 2 seasons over at Louisville. He was a first-round draft pick from Louisville back in 1989, and he actually began his college career coaching at Oregon in 2004. But when he joined Kentucky staff in 2010 at Kentucky with Calipari, that's when it really started to get going for him. He was on the bench during the championship and the national championship in 2012, and Payne also served as the associate head coach at Kentucky from 2014 to 2020. Then he went and took an assistant job with the NBA's New York Knicks for a couple of seasons, and then he was named Louisville's head coach in March 2022. So he's officially been announced. Looks like there was reports, too, that he was making $900,000 a year, nice little chunk of change, to say the least, and he's going to be part of the crew, part of the group, part of what Calipari's building. Now, we'll talk about some of the players here in just a little bit, too, and we'll talk more about the coaching staff here in just a little bit. But I wanted to really get into the player side, because as of right now, you still only have Big Z. Big Z's the guy that's on the roster, and that's it. They've had some movement on a few things when it comes to some of the big-time recruits that Arkansas has been going after, some of them in the transfer portal, some of them being on the other side of it in the freshman class that's going to be upcoming. So it can be kind of looked in a lot of different perspectives. But either way, you got the situation right now where Arkansas is still in on the same players. And according to reports, Carter Knox, who's the small forward 5-star player, is taking an official visit to Arkansas today as we speak. So finally got some movement there. And also, Boogie Fland had an interview as part of the Jordan Classic. This came from Adam Zagoria, where he says that John Calipari wants him at Arkansas and has been recruiting him heavily. So we'll see what that dives into, or what does that materialize into. And Boogie Fland says, quote, "Oh yeah, I did talk to him. He is definitely interested in wanting me to come to Arkansas." He says, what was Calipari's message? And Fland responded with, the same thing. Same thing he told me when he was at Kentucky. Asked if he planned to take a visit to Arkansas, Fland says, "I'm not sure yet. I got to talk to my people and see." Fland was originally committed to Kentucky back in October. He says, "I chose Kentucky because of the history of success with the guards that they had go through there. Coach Cal was going to challenge me to be the best version of myself. He didn't promise me anything, playing time, shots, etc. He only promised me a chance to compete and fight. The first fight is with myself every day, and I'm betting on me. BBN, baby, let's do it." That's what he posted when he officially committed, and then he decommitted. Calipari is also getting after Jaden Quaintance, the other 5-star, Billy Richmond, of course, and then We already mentioned Carter Knox, who would be visiting today. He visited with Louisville, and it looks like he's also going to be visiting to Memphis, is what the plan is. So Kentucky's still going to try to be on Boogie Flan too, but they're all going in on it, and it's not really anything changed, at least at the time of the recording of this podcast, on who it's going to be committing next or anything like that. But I wanted to give everybody an update specifically about some players and talk about maybe some of the reasons why there's a delay. Well, first off, you got to look at everybody else's team and how it's built and how it looks and how it's gone in this offseason. And there have been some teams that have had some commitments. I hate to even bring them up, but he is who he is. But Muss over at USC has been getting a lot of big-time commits out of the portal. I know that Chris Beard has been doing the same thing at Ole Miss. And so I think when people think that and see that the other teams that Arkansas fans feel like they should be better than or at least further along than, when they see them having players and Arkansas is not, they start getting some major concerns. Well, let me just be out there, folks. Don't be concerned. Are you going to get every single player? Are you going to get Carter Knox? Are you going to get Boogie Fland? Are you going to get all these guys? Jeremy Roach, I know, already committed to Baylor, so that's out of the mix. But are you going to get all of these players that Arkansas is on top of and trying to get after? I hope so. I really hope so. But I also think that there's a lot, and I mean a lot, that still has to go into a lot of these decisions being made, not only by the University of Arkansas with Calipari, but also by these kids. So let's look at from that. We'll start with the high school kids, and then we'll go into the transfer portals as to reasons why. High school kids are already going through a lot in most cases. And you got to think about when you're 17, 18 years old, and you think about where you're going to be playing your next basketball. When you made that commitment to that school, and in this case, Kentucky, you had it all set, all squared away, all done. And there was no reason for these kids to believe that Calipari was not going to be the head coach of Kentucky because Kentucky went all in saying, hey, we're going to get on here. So this is something that they didn't have to think about and contemplate until, boom, when it happened. And when it happened, not only did they have to get out of their commitment, but also their national letter of intent, which they signed with, it changed everything. And when something like that changes, it reopens that wound a little bit. Because let's be honest, the recruiting process is painful. It's painful for the kids. It's painful for everybody. It's part of the process. But I'd imagine that most kids want to just play basketball. There may be some that love the attention that they get. But at the end of the day, they just want to play basketball. They want to play it at a place that they can be the best that they can be and look into it where they're making improvements not only to their game, but being in positions to win. And so when they're in that, it makes kids feel like, okay, well, I'm committed, I'm signed, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm done. I'm moving on. And so it reopens the wound, and now they have to go all through the process again. And I truly believe that most of these kids committed to Cal, and so I truly believe that Arkansas and Cal are going to be 100% in the mix and probably the clubhouse favorite for landing some of these kids. But they still have to go through the process. They still want to go, okay, Coach Cal, why'd you leave? Tell me why you left. What is it about Arkansas that's going to help me? Who are your assistant coaches going to be? Who am I playing with? Who's going to be on my roster? There's a lot of questions that have to be answered. And I think that that's the process that they're going through is they're answering those questions. So that has to do a lot without question to me. The biggest thing in the delay of some of these incoming freshmen. The transfers is a whole nother thing. Because I still believe that the transfers that Arkansas is on top of are going to make their decision and more than likely come to Arkansas. Not guarantee anything, but more than likely come to Arkansas. Maybe some other teams in the mix that start hounding them and start getting that. But you're probably wondering, okay, so if they're going to Arkansas, if you feel confident about Arkansas, so what's taking it so long? It's Cal. They got an offer. They played for them. It's not like the incoming freshmen never played for Cal, so they don't know. But the guys that are at Kentucky that transferred out, they know what it's like to play for Cal. They want to still play for Cal, so what's hold up? Well, take this into consideration. NIL. But not in the way of, is Arkansas going to pay him? No, in the ways of they have agreements that were set with their previous school in Kentucky. They got to wait on some checks to clear. to get their final NIL check from the University of Kentucky. I'm not saying that's what all of them are about, but that's something to really consider, folks. Something to very much consider. Because that happens a lot. That's pretty much what happened, for instance, KJ Jefferson. And remember, like, he was gone. Everyone knew he was gone. Everyone knew he was transferring out. But it took forever. Why? Waiting on payment. Waiting on that contract or that endorsement or whatever you want to look at it to get fulfilled, to get signed, to get the money and move on. So I absolutely 100% believe that it's the same case here with these basketball players. 100% believe it. So just be patient. I know nobody wants to. I know you want to have all these players. And who knows, maybe this is the week that it all pops off. But anybody that's freaking out about it just needs to relax. That's what I keep trying to tell people. It doesn't matter because you're never going to listen to it unless it actually happens. But just relax. Enjoy the ride. The roster will get formed. The roster will get put together, and then you can start getting excited about it. But you just got to relax for a second. Okay, folks, I got to tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring your small business employees, you want to make sure that you find the quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who are actively searching for a new job but may not be open for the perfect role. But in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking at the wrong place because they get the hires. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidate within 24 hours. So they hire professionals like a professional, and it's all happening on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many different hats and may not have the time or the resources to make the hire. And LinkedIn's also constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that will help write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, I already mentioned about Kenny Payne getting hired as the Arkansas assistant coach, and another coach that was in the mix for the Razorbacks, and one that had been on the Kentucky staff was Orlando Antigua. Now, it was made official that Antigua was hired at Illinois as the associate head coach. Antigua actually worked under Brad Underwood, who's the head coach of Illinois, in Champaign before he returned to Kentucky to work for Calipari. Arkansas was in the mix for him, thought it was going to happen, but he decided to head over and play and coach for Illinois. Now, you're going to have different reactions to this, I am sure. Some of you may not care. Some of you may be fine with it because you feel like Kenny Payne's completely and totally able to do so. And some of you may be upset. It's like, because you want everything. Like, we all want everything. We want the best players. We want the best coaches. We all want them to come to Arkansas. We want to have the superstar roster. We want to have Ronnie Brewer on staff. We want to have Joe Johnson on staff. Everybody wants everything, and I get it. Totally get it. But I'm going to be continuing to give the benefit of the doubt to Calipari. Like, I just believe Calipari is the guy that's going to put this staff and roster and how he sees fit. And so him knowing what's at stake and kind of what he's walking into, and knowing that, you know, they basically went all out for getting Kenny Payne, and the payment that they've offered him, or that they've given him $1 million, close to $1 million, the highest paid assistant coach Arkansas has on staff. And if I'm not mistaken, if I did my math correctly, which it's probably not the case, that's about the same amount as all the full-time assistants made on Arkansas last year. So quite a significant bump on all of that. But I do believe that it's going to be funded very well, supported very well. And since Calipari knows that it's going to be supported and funded, he's going to bring in the best guys. I don't think there's any question that Orlando Antigua was in the mix and possibly would have made the jump with Cal. But I think with Cal hiring Kenny Payne, he's like, this is my guy. This is my associate head coach. This is the guy I feel great about, the best about, and being in this position. So I'm going to roll with him. was Antigua still into the mix? Absolutely. But think about it from Antigua. Do you want to go to a place to where, you got Kenny Payne already, the associate head coach there? So you automatically be the third fiddle, essentially. Or you can go back to Illinois and Champaign where you were under Brad Underwood, you know him, and you're going to be named the associate head coach. Second in command. I just think it was a better circumstance to have Antigua. If Kenny Payne was still at Louisville and succeeding, which it didn't happen, but if he was, I think Antigua would have been the associate head coach at Arkansas, no questions asked. But when you're Cal, you got to make sure that you're getting your best recruiters out there, your best guys, and most relatable. And let's be honest, you heard the years I read off about Kenny Payne, right? The years he was at Kentucky. What was his final season at Kentucky? His final year, 2020. And when I say 2020, I'm talking about the 2019-2020 season, the COVID year. That year, Kentucky was an incredible team that was going to be a very high seed in the NCAA tournament, but the COVID happened, as we all know. But here's what the record was for Kentucky when they had Kenny Payne on the staff and on the sidelines, associate head coach, however you want to look at it. But here's how it all planned out. He joined Kentucky in 2010, right? And went from 2010 to 2020. How about 35-3, 29-9, 38-2 when they won the national championship, 21-12, 29-11, 38-1, 27-9, 32-6, 26-11, 30-7, 25-6. That's the stretch right there. That was the record when Cal and Kenny Payne were together. That was the record. Their worst season was when they only had 21 games. They went to the NIT. We all remember that. But besides that, folks, look at this. Besides that one season, Elite Eight, Final Four, national champion. Runner-up of the national championship. Final Four, round of 32, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Elite Eight. And then again, the year that they got COVID, or the year that COVID happened, they were the team that won the SEC regular season. Their worst finish in the SEC, here's what's crazy, folks. Their worst finish in the SEC was when they tied for fourth in 2018, and they still went to the Sweet 16. Somehow they tied for second in, the year went to the NIT. They went 12-6 in SEC play, but 21-12 overall. So the point is that when Kenny Payne's been the coach under Cal, that's when they had their most success. So I am fine and probably happier that they're going to have Kenny Payne than anybody else. We'll do a little Razorback baseball talk here in just a second, folks. But I got to tell you, it's playoff time with the NBA and NHL and baseball. All of it's in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Baseball, Razorback Baseball, Diamond Hogs get the job done there at Alabama. They win the series. They actually won the rubber match. I hate doubleheaders. Or excuse me, not Alabama, South Carolina. I don't know why I had it listed as Bama. It's South Carolina. You know what I'm talking about, some red team. But yeah, so they were able to go on to Columbia and take care of business. And I hated this for a couple reasons. Well, I loved winning, but I just hated the fact that the doubleheader had to happen on Saturday because of rain on Sunday. I've always felt like those doubleheaders on the road on Saturdays have never gone Arkansas's way. And that's how it was against LSU last year on the road. I want to say they did it at South Carolina before as well, but it just never felt like it really went Arkansas's way. But this time it did. Arkansas won the first game 2-1. Thank goodness for Hagen Smith, which the guy continues to be incredible. Just absolutely stunning. Gabe Gackle came in, did his job. Stone Hewlett came in, did his job. Pitching did its job. And you know what? I don't have a problem with the lack of runs being scored in game one because you go up against SEC aces. So I don't expect game ones to be high scoring. They're battles. But what I do expect is you to score more than 3 runs in game two. And especially when you're losing because you have 14 runners left on base. 14 runners left on base. Arkansas got into a position at the end of the game, bases loaded, down by 3 with an out, and lost it. Didn't even score anything, didn't get anything out of it. Now, Arkansas offense got going in the third game. Thank goodness. 9-6, they won that game. And they really got going in the second inning with a 3-run inning and never really looked back. So thank goodness that happened. But my point is, this offense continues to scare me. And it has been for a while. Some people are mad. They're like, you're overreacting. You're just complaining about everything. Folks, the offense has got to is it a Nate Thompson thing? I feel like there's got to be an element to that with Nate Thompson. Because it's got to be something talked about. Arkansas's pitching is electric. It's elite. And Arkansas's offense, is it, like people throw out the numbers of like, oh, well, you know, who's had more RBIs and more runs scored since 2018? Arkansas's had the number one. Okay. But it's not just about looking at the general picture. You got to look at it in a more specific light. Like the amount of runs that have been scored per game, especially in SEC play against high-quality opponents. That's been a problem. And that's my concern with this team right now. I hope they can get better. I hope that they can find ways to make it work, but this type of stuff is just frustrating. They're good enough to get guys on base, but they're not good enough to get them home. That can't happen. I would rather score 3 runs in a game where you only got 5 guys on base than score. No, let me take that back. I would rather score 1 run in a game. We're only getting 4 guys on base. Then score 3 runs in a game, leaving 14. That is just awful. And it's about timeliness. It's about doing it the right way. And there were some times where Arkansas scored that it wasn't about their hits. It was about wild pitches and everything. Baseball is going to be baseball. It's going to happen. And I'm not looking at this own singular time. It's like, oh, this one series is now when I have a problem with it. It's been a problem for a while. And I hope Arkansas can continue to improve and continue to get it fixed and continue to just make plays because, again, they are perfectly capable of making plays. But it is my concern. It's a very big concern, a very large concern, and I hope it gets better for Arkansas' sake because I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have it like on game threes in SEC series. You should score like that game 3 that Arkansas had 9-6. That should be the type of game you have every game 3. You should score a lot of runs. Even in game 2, you better score more than 3. You have to score more than 3. You have to, especially with runners in scoring position. Got to do it. Appreciate everybody listening in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at the John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.